Hello, everyone. This is Tijen Genco, Master Certified Coach, Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. And you are tuned into Coaching with Mastery and Elegance with Tijen Genco. And I have my usual beautiful companion, Cynthia Late, here is with me. Hello, Cynthia.
Hi, Tijen. I'm Cynthia Late, career strategy coach, and excited to be starting this podcast with you.
Thank you for being here. So, Cynthia, we were chatting earlier. Do you want to share with us and our audience what are we going to discuss today?
Absolutely. So, really, this is about planning to execution and why follow through is so hard. We make plans all the time, and some are simple, like a trip to the grocery store, and others are more complex, like launching a business. So, what makes it so hard to follow through on commitments? When we first make them, there's excitement and a sense of possibility. And then I find when I start to make progress and challenges come up, there's less energy available to make progress. And so I'm good at stalling, procrastinating, getting distracted, and really losing interest in my commitment. We tell ourselves it's too big or too hard, but are the stories we tell ourselves really true? So,
Mm,
in this podcast, we're going to talk about why this happens and some strategies to help you follow through on your commitments. Sound good?
that sounds good. So this show isn't about the marriage. If you have fear of committing to another human being, that will be another episode. Yeah, certainly. This is more about the behavioral, committing to a particular change, particular emotional shift, mental, cognitive shift. And absolutely. So, where do you want us to start?
Well, Tijen, since New Year's Day isn't far away, let's start there. So, why should we even make New Year's resolutions at all since they're so prone to failure?
I don't think we need to because I don't go to the gym anymore as a certified movement teacher. I do my home eh, eh, fitness at home. But I remember when I had a membership, how much the membership exploded in January. And I would actually not go to the gym in January and go back in February. So, yeah. And as a coach, I could say what happens is that the resolutions, in a way, is like hop, hop, hooray, something. There is an predictive predictive
Mhm.
newness.
Yeah.
New year is not necessarily new. We are just marking in the calendar in the middle of the winter. We're not
Yeah.
even meant to start anything new, basically, right? That maybe would be more appropriate in the spring.
Mhm.
But the idea then something new is happening. What
Mhm.
can I change in me?
Mhm.
And that's the thought, right? What can I change in me? What I have to change in me? There is then, first of all, being unappreciative or displeased about the self. It's
Mhm.
not like, oh, I'm so motivated to do something else. It's often, at least in our culture in America, right? There is displeasement about
Mhm.
something that we want to change. And then, even then, we don't necessarily look underneath, as I call it, thing beneath the thing, that what is getting in our way of what we want.
Mhm.
We don't look at that. We just say, from being displeased with something, we put our vision over here and we want to be like that. It is possible, not that probable. Because most
Yeah.
of us, right, it takes a lot of resilience and effort to shift the behavior right away like that. It
Mhm.
can happen, but it requires determination. Often, when we are in a state of being displeased with
Mhm.
ourselves, it's not going to happen.
Mhm. Yeah.
right? That because the change happens with
Hmm.
intrinsic motivation. It's not going to happen with what we all of a sudden decide, I need to look like that and do this
Yeah.
and whatever, right? External thought. So it fails for multiple reasons, as I'm sharing. One is the intrinsic motivation
Hmm.
lacks because the person doesn't really understand what is preventing them, so that understand the underlying thing to hook into their authentic
Hmm.
energy giver thing, their motivation. The another thing is that when they don't understand what prevents them to get there, then they don't know how to resolve that to get there. So there is no resolution, but wanting to sustain a change with force,
Hmm.
that often doesn't happen. And then there is no bridging the gap in between. And when one doesn't understand the self,
Yeah.
let's say that we want to lose weight, we want to be more fit, but why?
Yeah.
Right? When we don't know that, then what is it there for us to hold on to sustain the behavior? If
Hmm.
our main goal is to maintain our health,
Hmm.
then we have more appreciation and different capabilities we're looking for, such as maybe one can actually walk an hour a day instead
Hmm.
of going to a gym to a
Hmm.
kickboxing class, right? It
Yeah.
may not be right fit, but they often pick the inappropriate action
Hmm.
towards the desired state. So those are the things I often see it.
Yeah. It's a lot of times, I've noticed this as we identify this change we want, and all we see is, oh, it's all going to be all this rosy, perfect, lovely thing. And we don't realize that there's this other piece of it, this work. And the reason we haven't made the change is because we haven't done that work. And so we go towards this shiny object and the work shows up and wait a minute, it wasn't what I planned on.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly. So, really, what happens when you make a resolution?
Um, to succeed or fail? It
Hopefully to
depends.
succeed, because we all know what failure looks like.
Yes, it depends, right? I actually spell the resolution as resolutioning,
What a beautiful way to spin that.
right? Resolution. So, and that solution, it's not only solution, but it's also solution.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So when we connect all that, right, what is the soul is here to experience, yeah, to
Hmm. Yeah,
experience more of or in alignment with,
yeah.
and what is my new solution?
Hmm.
Connect to those parts of myself better. When we do it appropriately, that's what I said in intrinsic motivation,
Hmm.
because there
Yeah,
is this nudge,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And what is that nudge and where exactly it wants to take us
Mhm.
to,
Yeah.
and where it wants to take us to. So the appropriately, supportively done resolutioning requires a reflective process
Mhm.
to figure these out.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like the shiny object, as you said it, going to the gym and looking
Mhm.
fit.
Yeah.
But why do I want that? Well, maybe I want more fitness and mobility.
Hmm.
Maybe I am looking for camaraderie.
Hmm.
Maybe I'm looking for moving with the rest of the crowd, be
Hmm.
belonging. Once we understand that, then we can resolve what's preventing us
Yeah.
to experience those things in our life. So
Mhm. Yeah.
then we can appropriate
Hmm.
the behavior, appropriate the goal,
Hmm.
and move on. So I say that every resolution requires a shedding, a
Hmm.
grievance process,
Hmm.
a state of maybe being in limbo a little bit, and
Mhm.
then determining an appropriate goals to go towards it.
Yeah, I love that you set an appropriate goal because a lot of times we set goals that we think are simple when they're actually much bigger and complex. So a
Yeah.
smaller goal is a great way to take a step in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, people think that going to the gym twice a week is so simple.
Yeah.
It's not. Because this is another thing. Thank you for bringing that forward, because we need to understand the complexity of the goal, right? If your lifestyle is not designed
Mhm.
currently to embrace additional behavior for you, then there may not be no room for you to do it. Then it's an
Right.
add on to already full cup.
Yep.
This is why I said it requires some shedding. What
Hmm.
needs to be eliminated so that you
Hmm.
can go do whatever else. And it's also is helpful to understand, is it an additive or subtractive
Hmm.
goal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Big difference.
Very.
So we talked a little bit what makes it hard to maintain our commitments to ourselves. One of the reasons is you've got to figure out what you're going to let go of if you're adding something. What else gets in the way of maintaining these commitments?
I think that the lack of motivation, right?
Mhm.
Proper motivation. If it is extrinsic, like I want to fit in and I want to go along with everybody else, maybe it's not true to you, not going to the gym, but maybe walking in the forest
Yeah.
still serves the same purpose, but
Hmm.
done it in a different way. In misalignment in values,
Hmm.
misalignment in motivation, as you said it, not having enough energy, requiring, am I adding, am I shedding, what is happening, and what needs to be let go of so that I can add more. These are all particular contributors.
Hmm.
And we can also think about our own unique way of doing things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And along those lines, one thing that comes to mind about maintaining our commitments, and I love that you mentioned intrinsic motivation because too often we think willpower. I'm going to willpower through this, and it doesn't, it's not sustainable. It may work in the short term, but in the long term, and then you feel even worse because you thought you could do it with willpower.
Yes, then there is the guilt and shame. People, when they say, I will myself through it,
Yeah.
makes me think about those space shuttles, right? You burn the fuel, send them away, and then they
But it's such a great analogy. Absolutely.
versus a skillful surfer, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
waits the right moment,
Mhm.
partners with the wave, and
Yeah.
then come off and then have a great ride. So they're very
Yeah.
different way of accomplishing things.
Exactly. And I love that you brought up partnering because that's really is what helps with any kind of goal achievement. It's partnering with yourself, partnering with whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Partnering with the universe,
Yeah.
partnering with the fitness instructor, whatever it is. A coach,
Yeah.
especially.
Partnering with the coach.
Call us.
Oh my goodness. So when someone does follow through on their commitments, what are they doing differently?
I think those are the concepts that we discussed
Yeah.
already, right? Understanding what day needs to be let go. They may have very strong passion
Hmm.
or value structure. Sometimes we don't have any energy, but if it doesn't go along with our value system, we are
Yeah.
clothing through, don't we? Right? So we find a way to make it happen.
Mhm.
If something is getting us intrinsically motivating or in alignment with high degree values that we follow through. And sometimes our values shift, right? If
Yeah.
you always had a good health, you may put your health a little lower in
Mhm.
your work schedule can come, your entertainment or other things can come forward. But all of a sudden, when you diagnose with something,
Yeah.
right? Especially a big thing.
Yeah.
Now a lot of things gonna has to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
If you're motivated to stay alive. That can be an option. But right, so I think that recognizing also in the given moment, what are my
Mhm.
current values and how is this thing I want are gonna serve to those things. And if really adjusting it, maybe in the beginning of the year, you decided that you wanna run a marathon
Mhm.
and you start to training for it, it is you're intrinsically motivated and everything was fine, and all of a sudden you have a sick relative,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So it can happen.
Yeah.
So you don't have to reduce the goal to nothing.
Right.
You can still honor what honored me. I wanted to do something I've never done before.
Hmm.
That stretching myself. Okay, maybe that is unattainable, but what else is in my life will
Yeah.
give me that so that we don't need to feel like a failure to ourselves and disappointed about ourselves and or resentful
Yeah.
people that we're supporting, right?
Hmm. Yep. Yeah. And I love that you brought up the black and white thinking. I only succeed if I run the marathon and I fail if I don't. And what else is possible? And really to support my, and it gets back to the values that you talked about. What are my values and what's going to support my values long term?
Yes, and the creative thinking, right?
Yeah.
It's not that specific thing, but something
Hmm.
else.
Yeah.
Once we know, right? Knowing
Yeah.
thyself, once we know ourselves.
Exactly. Now, it's interesting you brought up the idea of values because I remember when I was younger and my kids were home and I would come home from work exhausted. And I know that if my kids weren't there, I probably would have just watched TV and gone to bed. But my values is I wanted to be a good mom. And so I found energy to make dinner. Let's talk about homework. Let's do
Yeah.
all these things. I would go to bed absolutely exhausted. But again, it gets back to this intrinsic, nobody was measuring me. There wasn't the mom police knocking on my door. It just was my value. And so I found this intrinsic motivation.
Yes,
Yeah.
beautiful. This is what I was saying. When we are connected to our values, we clothe ourselves through it.
It
Even
wasn't always a great dinner, but it was a dinner.
Absolutely. But the main goal was that
Yeah,
you wanted to be a good mom and connected to
exactly.
your children. And even if it's a bread and butter, that's it, you know.
Not going to go through we're not going to go through the menu options, but
Exactly.
they're still alive and functioning, so everything is good. So, if an average person is looking to make a change and actually step in the change, what would help them have a greater probability of success? You've mentioned a number of these before, but what else would they need to keep in mind?
I think that what we didn't highlight enough, just addition to the
Hmm.
motivation, the values,
Yeah.
understanding, I think that the compassion for the self, right?
I like that.
We don't need to be whipping ourselves into a goal, which we tend to do in this
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah.
We could appreciate, be kind, and flexible with our vision,
Yeah.
right? Our vision, again, it could be running a marathon, but then maybe it will give you a high and everything, but maybe it will also be too much, too taxing to your bones, or
Hmm.
depending on your age or whatever.
Hmm.
So then how can I honor myself
Yeah.
and give myself the thrill and the fitness so we can keep adjusting it?
Mhm.
It won't be maybe the marathon today, but it also won't be a chocolate cake.
Maybe the cake is at the end of the running route for today's workout, and then it works both.
So, absolutely.
Well, I love that you brought up compassion because I find this with my coaching clients is I invite them to try experiment with new things. And usually what I've seen and I've done this myself, you try something new and it didn't quite go the way you wanted. And then you think, oh, this doesn't work and you give up. And what I find with my clients, and this gets to the compassion is, okay, what this didn't work, but what parts of it did work? And then what do you want to do when you try again? So this continual okay, well, this part worked, this didn't work, and this constant evaluation with the compassion to help you find a solution, because you need to find a solution that aligns with your values and your way of doing things. And that's what I love about coaching is we get to work that out together.
Absolutely. And the appreciating the self, right?
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
looking like, oh, well, I didn't do that. Oh, we have like an internal rolling eye thing going on.
We do. We do.
Seeing those things and
Yeah.
laughing at it like we're doing right now, it can
Yeah.
soften and bring us into the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're launching a new offering called Goal Getter Group Coaching Program. What inspired you to deliver this type of offering?
Well, it was actually you, Cynthia. Remember that when we were concluding
Yeah.
the branding course, you were expressing that it would be helpful to have a supported structure as you take the business into its running and so on. And you were not the only one, but I often listen, it was the beginning of the year you mentioning this,
Yeah.
just having the time to do it at the end of the year. But I often heard from my students that they needed a more supportive structure,
Mhm.
and also they were looking for more affordable ways, right?
Mhm.
I do this with my um, high degree C-suite executives and
Mhm.
that level of people, that's like the cost is high. So I figured that if I develop a program that includes the solutioning, as well as the structured steps towards the goal with some deepening practices, as well as the coaching
Mhm.
around it in
Yeah.
the supportive group environment, it will be helpful for people to move through. And this way I can make it more accessible.
Mhm.
So those were the things that inspired me to do that.
Yeah, and as you and I both know, launching a coaching business can be challenging and it can be a little lonely. So having this group environment really supports and helps us be more creative with each other and helps us all succeed.
Absolutely. And it's not only for the entrepreneurs starting up the business, but it could be anything. It could be about your health goals, the life goals, or whatever the conflict resolution goals, right? As you know, that the people can work on their different goals
Mhm.
in a group setting towards their own resolution space, but somehow there is a group spirit
Yeah.
that supports people
Mhm.
in the space of change. Yeah.
Yeah. So what makes this program different from other programs out there? Because there are other programs like this, but what makes yours different?
I think that it is me. No.
You are at one secret sauce, so I would agree with that.
Thank you. No, but I think that I approach this in multiple ways, right? One is to really starting with looking at what needs to be shed, what needs to be resolved, what needs to be connected to my soul, what is my soul is telling me, starting the journey that way. And then determining what my goal is and keep refining the goal
Mm. Yeah.
towards it, and then finding the compassion and care. But I also am going to bring here, as a corporate strategist, uh,
Mm.
certain strategic tools, deepening practices to connect you to more or the deeper part of you, so that you not what we're doing in a session, but your soul is fueling your mission, your soul is getting you to the surfboard. So I think that those me as a corporate strategist, me as a C-suite executive coach, and also esoteric teacher and all that is all gonna come in together towards a very transformative
Mhm.
way of achieving the desired state with fun and gentleness.
And I love that you talk about adjusting the goal because all of a sudden we say, oh, I'm going to do this. And then just like the marathon, if you end up with an injury or a family member who needs support, you don't give up on it. It's like, okay, how do I adjust it so that you still find what you were looking for and you find ways to get there without giving up on the goal? This was too hard, all those other things that we tell ourselves when things don't work out the way we thought they were going to.
Yes, and doing it with some pleasure
Yeah,
about ourselves instead of displeasing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So what other recommendations might you have for people who want to undertake a big change or a project and are really doubting their ability to follow through?
Yeah, if they cannot establish a support structure like working with a coach,
Mm-hmm,
another person help them to self-reflect and everything, they can find a way to start with a reflection
mm-hmm,
to better understand what is it that I truly want
mm-hmm,
with this thing in my mind. What am I really gonna get?
mm-hmm,
And then what is preventing me to get it?
mm-hmm,
Then we can look to see, is it an emotional shift,
mm-hmm.
behavioral shift, cognitive shift, right? A mental shift? What is it? And then how are you going to go about doing it? And sometimes it's all of the above, and you need more support. Right, understanding and appreciating the self and being the best companion to the self, right? I mean, everybody has a different way of achieving a goal. Some people like to be a drill sergeant to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work well for me.
Mm-hmm.
Then I rebel
Yeah.
when I get into that sort of a role. So even knowing that is a very valuable information to shift the attitude and approach.
And actually, when you talked about the shifts, it really reminded me a lot of times you run into a challenge and then you figure out the shift, you get somewhere else, and it doesn't mean you figured everything else. You're just looking for your next area of resistance. And they keep showing up no matter where you are. It's not like one and done and you're fixed. You just keep running into other areas that you didn't know were there, and they surprise you every time. At least surprise me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, as we get to the end of our podcast, do you have any final thoughts on the topic of resolutions, commitments, change, and follow through before we close?
I think that commitment is another big topic that maybe we will also have another episode to talk about. We were joking in the beginning, but um, looking at our approach in general to committing to ourselves
Mhm,
is important. If you always somebody makes a promise to yourself
mhm,
and keep breaking that promise,
mhm.
how is then you think your whole system is going to respond to you when you say, let's go over here?
Yeah.
They're going to say, well, you go. We're not going. So that's also is part of this appreciative
Yeah.
journey to say, how can I actually be more kinder,
Mhm,
integrous,
mhm,
and ethical towards myself so that whenever I decide to command myself to go somewhere, everything is going to go. So it's not like this is going to say this is going to say that, different
yeah.
parts of ourselves, right? So I think that will be maybe, I had other stuff I was going to say, but I think that's a good note to end on, don't you think?
I love that because when you talked about that, one big topic, and this comes up with my coaching clients is how do I show up for myself? And how do I consistently show up? And when you get into people pleasing and perfectionism, usually the showing up to the self is way down the list. So I love the topic and I'm excited to hear what comes up when we go through that.
Yes, keep watching us, people. Subscribe to us. Yes.
So thank you, Tijen, for all of your insights on this. And how can people find out more about this upcoming program? Because it starts pretty soon.
Yes, it is. It starts in mid-December. Thank you for that. With the resolutioning episode, and then we get into the setting the goals and then the coaching. So um, people can go to gencocoaching.com, upcoming events,
Mhm,
to find this program as well as the other ones that are
mhm,
coming up,
mhm,
to sign up. And I can also mention that the group mentor coaching is going to start in February. I am still offering them quarterly, so they are a scarce commodity to be part of. And then Sufi Pathways to Heart masterclass is also going to start next year. That will be the third year. It's a phenomenal class that we look at different life concepts as a philosophy and to appreciate them in depth, to
mhm,
understand the self. And once we understand the self, then we can support the clients reframe whatever
mhm,
it is happening. So it is a master class. It also is serving everybody in their journey to mastery, but also if they receive the MCC credentials and want to advance further, they can also come to that. Anybody can come to that. Yeah, those are the main things besides our ICF credentialing exam
mhm.
prep class is also going to run next year. And then NBHWC exam prep class is going to run next year. So anything they want, people are interested in, they can go to upcoming events to find out. And anything you would like to share with the audience, Cynthia?
Well, you've kind of got you have a very rich offering, a very full menu, so it's exciting to see all that.
Thank you. Yes.
So I'm actually wrapping up 2024 with some clients, and I've got some new openings in 2025 for new clients. If you're what I'm seeing out there is the job market is very challenging, so most people are choosing to stay. And so I would love to support you if you're trying to find more ways to make it more manageable, because we've all had over demanding bosses and we've had all sorts of challenges in the work life. And your friends say, just quit. You're like, well, I have 3 kids and a mortgage. I can't quit. So working with a coach can help you figure out solutions and really regain your power,
Mhm.
and get back into the driver's seat. Because a lot of times when a lot of these things happen, we tend to go into the victim mode. And I'd love to support anybody who wants to get back and gain their power again.
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. And where can they find you?
They can find me on my website, www.cynthialate.com, and all the offerings are there. And just we'll have a conversation and see what might work for you.
Click through. Exactly. All right. Well, everybody, if you missed in the beginning, this is Coaching with Mastery and Elegance with Tijen Genco, and I have my Cynthia Late was here with me. And please remember to subscribe to us if you like. And we are very appreciative of those of you are leaving us feedback. And if you haven't done so, please consider doing that. And thank you, Cynthia, for another lovely episode. And we'll see you next episode. Maybe it will be about the commitments.
Yes, maybe. We're not ready to commit to it.
Exactly. Subscribe to find out. Yes.